So some folks here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts do stand up for the little guy, and I have one of them here in the studio with us right now, Mr. Brad Marston, who is running for the 8th Suffolk House seat here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which is, I guess, all of the area around this building he's going to be representing on into Cambridge. But he is also an original signer of the measure that is now on the ballot. Question 3. A yes vote on question 3 will roll back the Massachusetts state sales tax from the current 6.25%. And it's only been that for about a year, right, Brad?
That's right.
They raised it last September, from 5%, where it was for about 20 years. And I forgot what it was before that until I started looking at your campaign, your website. It used to be 3%, and I remember that 20 years ago. But we got a whole generation that never lived under a sales tax that was more reasonable.
Well, and when it was raised from 3% to 5%, it was, quote-unquote, a temporary increase.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody was led to believe that, well, we're temporarily going to raise it to 5 before we then raise it even higher.
Right, which they did again last year, and also at the same time they imposed a what some would view as a second tax on alcohol, because alcohol already has some kind of excise tax. Now, you and I, when we go into the liquor store, and in my community, when I drive down here, driving through Roxbury, there are lines outside the liquor store, and most of these people are jobless and homeless, but they got to drown their sorrow some kind of way. So they got to pay for the liquor, and then they got to pay the governor. They got to pay the Commonwealth a tax on liquor, which we never had, and that's supposed to be temporary. Is that going to be around for 20 years now as well?
It's just never enough. We could raise it to 6.25%. That's not going to be enough. Put a tax on a tax, because as you mentioned, alcohol is already subject to an excise tax.
Correct.
And so it's a tax, again, on a tax. And it's never enough. They're always going to find ways to spend it.
And we increasingly have all these deficits. There are people that are talking about throwing our first African-American governor out of office because of the continually mounting deficits. What are they doing with all this tax money if we continue to get deficits? What's happening that we're seeing government in Massachusetts continue to grow and we can't pay for it?
Well, and to Governor Patrick's credit, he has proposed every year budget vetoes, saying, nope, we can't spend that, nope, we can't spend that.
Live within our means.
And the legislature votes to override his budget vetoes virtually every time. The only time that they seriously went along with him was this year because of the uncertainty of that extra $600 or $700 million of funding from the federal government. Governor Patrick hasn't had any more success in getting his budget vetoes passed with a democratically controlled legislature than Mitt Romney did, or any of the past Republican governors. So it's really it's a question of where does the power lie on the budget. And I mean, even Senate President Therese Murray during last year's budget negotiations called the governor basically irrelevant to the questions on the budget. So, I think people. I think the other thing people need to realize is Carla Howell and Mike McLeod, people behind this ballot measure, originally wanted to take the sales tax down to 0. But what has our legislature done? They've taken 1% of the 6.25% and pledged it as collateral for bonds, and then they've pledged it over here and over there. So there's really only 3%. There's 3% is already taken, and it's legally it has to be there. So instead of taking it from 6.25 to 0, we had to settle with what was legal, and that is right now 3%. And so that's what they elected to go for, and that's what I signed on for as one of the original 10 signers to start the process of getting it on the ballot.
And also, as I read question 3, it also says that if in time we see that 3% is not enough to keep everything going, that they would raise it up to wherever they legally could. and comfortably get things done, or something to that effect.
What it is, as I said, certain parts of the revenue stream from the sales tax are legally pledged to pay interest on bonds, principal on bonds, etc. And so we have to stay within the legal framework of how that money is spent. But at the moment, more than 50% of our sales tax revenues just goes into sort of the general fund to pay for what even the Boston Globe back in May called a bloated and dysfunctional bureaucracy up on Beacon Hill.
Yes, sir. And there's a lot of waste and mismanagement. All I know is when they raised the sales tax last year, 6.25%, I had Verizon for my telephone and internet. And I do a lot of work online in communities like my own all over the world. My phone bill went up $40 just because of that increase in the sales tax, and I was very angry. So you darn tootin', I'm going to vote yes on question 3 and question 1, and I've been urging everyone to do that for weeks now. But my fear has been that as 2 years ago, first of all, there's very few voices out there in my community supporting me, but as 2 years ago, these big unions and whatnot, these people that are benefiting from all this are going to blitz us with a scare campaign to make people think that we're going to fall off the earth and we better keep giving the government all our money instead of keep it in our pocket. Do you think that that's going to happen starting this week?
They've already raised
a lot of money.
Over $1 million, and it's all from the teachers' unions and other
people that have
jobs. Well, that's and
for now.
People who want to protect the status quo.
Yes, sir.
So what people have to realize is by cutting the sales tax to 3%, we're going to create thousands of private sector jobs. We're going to it'll lead to millions of dollars in private investments.
Yes, sir.
It will force the legislature to get serious about not cutting aid to schools, local aid, or social safety net programs, but really cutting at all of the bureaucracy, all the waste, all of the mismanagement that goes on up there. And I think the other thing people have to realize is if we cut the sales tax to 3%, when we cut the sales tax to 3%, that $2.5 billion doesn't disappear.
Right.
It stays
goes into
your
my pocket. Right.
my pocket, your listener's pocket.
Right.
And we individuals tend to be pretty efficient on how they spend their money.
That's a real stimulus, Brad. We can give ourselves our own stimulus on November 2nd. Brad, we do have a caller on the line, and I want to thank that person for being so patient with us. Good afternoon, and welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Brian. I'm calling from Belmont.
Yes, sir.
What are the chances of the sales tax? I'm for the rollback. What are the chances? Good.
We didn't hear your question. Are you on a cell phone? Because it's going off and on.
Yeah, I'm on a cell phone.
Okay. Say your question again.
Is it a good chance of? Does the initiative have a good chance of passing?
Oh, well, I don't know. We're going to ask Brad that, and him and I were talking before the show, and he says that he's been seeing polls that shows that it's going to do quite well. Brad, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think we've seen 2 polls, one back from March and one sort of midsummer, and the numbers were really encouraging. I think it was 54 to 44 in favor of passage. So now the forces aligned against this haven't hit the airways with their blitz yet. And the forces in favor of question 3 don't have anywhere near the kind of money that is going to be spent against us. But I think
I think I'm the only voice in media right now that's been trying to educate people about this. But let me ask our caller. You say you're calling from Belmont. What are you seeing in Belmont? What's the air there?
Well, Belmont's a really pretty liberal town. But I am seeing some. There's definitely a lot. I think an undercurrent of disgust with all the corruption that's been going on.
Right.
The tax increases in general.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for calling in, and keep on listening.
Thanks, sir.
All right.